Welcome everyone to the show today. I'm Landon, your host, and joining us here today, we have a good friend from Philly and a fellow prep brother from St. Joe's Prep, Joe Decamara. Thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Landon, what's going on, bud? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much again for coming on the show. I wanted to ask you, we're about to start the playoff run, obviously, and, there's all kinds of interesting things buzzing with the Eagles, even for, a normal Philly year. But in particular, I want to ask you, let's talk about the offense, but let's talk about, how do you feel in a very realistic sense? How do you feel about Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni and their play calling for the offense as we go through this playoff run? Like, how capable do you think they actually are of taking us all the way and repeating?
I think they're very capable. I mean, look, I can't tell you that they're as good combo-wise as Sirianni and Kellen Moore were last year, or Shane Steichen, back in those 2 or 3 years. But I think they're certainly capable. I think the conversation about Sirianni and Patullo has been incredibly overblown.
Really?
I think the ills of the offense, I think, have been primarily the offensive line for the season. Certainly Jalen's downturn in November and December when he just did not play very well. Saquon hasn't been as good. I don't think AJ's as good. So I put it much, much more on the players. I'll say here in Philly, more people put it on Patullo than the players, but I think there's a general sense that, both the coaches and the players haven't, performed the same standard as last year. But personally, I think it's much, 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 much more about the players.
Interesting. So with that said, so for this playoff run, if you were, choosing the play calling, do you feel like, especially since everyone's rested now, obviously that's been this big controversy too. And I just had Barrett Brooks on the show last night, and he actually is happy that everyone was rested instead of going for the 2 seed. But with that said, theoretically, if we're that rested now, do you feel like for this playoff run, should we be trying to run the ball as often as we did last year's playoff run? Like, can we afford to do that? When people know what a historic year we had last year with Saquon, or do you think we need to pass the ball a little bit more? Even with the offensive line rested, how do you feel about that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, let me just address the rest thing. I think it was the right decision. I think it was a great decision. Sirianni got hammered here by, half the fan base. We've done 2 different polls on the topic, and the polls are close to 50-50.
Huh.
I don't remember the exact number, but people were very split on the worthwhileness of rest or starters for the 2 seeds. So that was very split, but I personally think it was the right decision.
Huh.
So I start with that. By the way, I'll just throw in, I think the single biggest reason why the Packers are favored in Chicago this weekend.
Oh, they are? I didn't even know that.
Huh. Packers are favored by 1.5. And I think the biggest reason is because the Packers just had a bye, essentially, and the Bears did not. Bears played all their starters, played the whole game. Packers sat their starters the whole game. So I think pretty clearly that's why the Packers are favored. So I think it's good for the Eagles that they rested. Now, with regard to the offense, I would say that in an ideal world, yes, they would run it a lot. The key is there's 2 keys. Key number 1 is whether the offensive line will play well enough to merit that they continue to run it. Last year they did, obviously, as you pointed out, and this year, for the most part, they have not. I think with the starting offensive line this year, their pass protection has been better than their run block. So, I want to say, run it 35 times in this game, give, Saquon 20, have Tank Bigsby get, 7 or 8, get Jalen Hurts get, 6 to 8, and whatever that adds up to in the 35 range. But that Saquon part of it only works if it's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You got to get yards. You got to turn a 1st and 10 into 2nd and 5, or you're going to have to start passing the ball. So I really think it's going to be dictated primarily based on their effectiveness. Um, which obviously time will tell. I mean, I thought the biggest factor in resting the players was specifically resting Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens, who, I mean, Landon, we all know those guys can play much better than they have this year. We all know they've been injured in a what generally you'd call banged up sense. They keep playing, but they're not playing well. So hopefully, 14 days off lets those guys be better. I don't think they'll be last year better, but hopefully better. Um, and then the other big key with the running game is Jalen. I think it's time to cut him loose and let him run a lot and encourage him to run a lot and for him to choose to run a lot. I think they were wise in the regular season to not have him run too often. I'm a big proponent in trying to keep the quarterback healthy, which they did, and he did. Um, but you got to win 4 games to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it's
And
playoff time, so you feel like
yeah,
it's time to run him more.
it's time to go.
Yeah.
Let's go. I mean, let's go. And if he gets hurt, then you got to live with that. But I think it's time to cut it loose. And I'll say, particularly in the third and fourth quarter, if the game hangs in.
Huh. Like to kind of close the game out kind of thing and get first
Well,
down.
or yeah, close it out or just, win it. I mean,
Right.
there could be a scenario they're down 14-12
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter, and it's time to do anything you got to do to win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So, even when you emphasize that, the amount of times we run the ball as opposed to pass is kind of going to be dictated by the effectiveness of the offensive line and the yards we're getting. Um, I mean, you feel like it's dictated more by that than even how the defenses are playing. Like we've had so many struggles this year. I just don't know how the defenses are. They still do you feel like they're still gonna like stack the box against Saquon just based on last year, or are people even gonna respect our run that much? In this playoff season, or
Look, it's a great question. I don't know the answer to it. I know that if Jalen shows that he's running early, that'll cause defenses to be more apt to stack the box. So I think that's a factor. Um, but look, the reality is they haven't run it or passed it well this year. I mean, they just haven't. Um, so it's funny when we do the shows on WIP. I mean, we get all these calls, run it more, and then we get the calls that say pass it more. And I'm always like, well, guys, just so we're all clear, they haven't been good at either. So like, there's a reason we get calls about doing the other from both sides of the ledger because they just haven't been good. And by the way, they weren't good passing the ball last year. Now they didn't have to pass it as much um, because they could run it so effectively, but they were 29th last year in pro football in the regular season in passing the ball from
huh?
a yardage standpoint.
Yeah.
So, it's I just think the big keys are, like I said, getting the O line as healthy as possible. Jalen choosing to run it more. And I'll give you the third key as it relates to the run game. I think it's going to be fascinating to find out if they choose to play Tank Bigsby more. And I'll just call it like the percentage of runs that Tank gets compared to Saquon. I personally think Tank Bigsby's been better this year. I mean, the numbers show that. No, it's on limited carries. But I think the guy's pretty good. He's clearly breaking more tackles. And look, there's no offense meant to Saquon with any of this. I mean, the reality is he was supposed to take a drop this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Saquon touched the ball 482 times last year. So it's an enormous number. He probably got tackled to the ground 200 and something times, maybe more. Obviously there's times where Saquon would run out of bounds or whatever, or score a touchdown. But I mean, he was probably tackled 300 times last year to the ground. So, Saquon is, in my opinion, affected. I think the bigger factor is the ills of the offensive line. But Saquon, to me, I mean, I don't see him jumping over people backwards, for instance. And Bigsby looks like he's got a lot of juice. So I'll be interested in, if let's just say that the running backs get 25 rushes. Is that 20 for Saquon and is that 22 for Saquon and 3 for Tank Bigsby? Or is that more like a 17-8 split? It'll be interesting to see how much they lean on Bigsby. I don't think they'll lean on him much, but I got to tell you, I'm tempted to. I think the guy's pretty good.
Yeah, interesting. Um, how do you feel about when it does come to the passing game? Obviously, like you've mentioned, I mean, we've struggled on offensively, both run and pass this year. But as everyone's talking about, when it does come to the passing game, I mean, in the same way that you said, now that we're in the playoffs, it's time to start running Jalen more and cut him loose. Do you also feel like it's time to open the passing offense more when we do pass, and it's time for him to take more risks, throw it over the middle, be a little less conservative? I mean, how do you feel about all that?
I really don't. I don't expect that he will. I don't expect that they'll want him to. I think Hurts and Sirianni, both by nature, have a conservative sort of thing going. And by the way, it served them really well. I mean, I know we all get frustrated with the offense. I think 100% of Eagles fans are frustrated with the offense, but we do need to acknowledge that they typically win anyway. Um, and so, Jalen's tremendous ability to not turn the ball over often is a great trait. It's an incredible thing. And I don't think they'll start cutting it loose across the middle with all these, plays in the passing attack. I think it'll be what it typically is, which is, a lot of passes to the edge. Um, that's often where Goddard gets the ball. Um, and then of course the bombs, that's a big part of the offense, the bombs. And Jalen's very good at that. So I don't expect the passing game to look very different. Now, we all know there are times where Jalen, like any quarterback, just plays better than other times. So maybe he can dial in and get in a good groove. But I don't expect the offense, frankly, to look much different in the playoffs. If this team is going to win the Super Bowl, they're going to win it because they have a great defense that I think carries them. I mean, I will be surprised if they win the Super Bowl with a different formula.
Huh. So it seems like, not only are you predicting that that's what Sirianni and Hurts are going to do, but it sounds like you at least mostly agree with the
I do.
strategy. Yeah.
I mean, it's what it is. I mean, I'd love to tell you that they, start passing the ball, all over the place, and it's Donovan to T.O., and the running game can look like last year, but it is what it is. I mean, it's just the 18th game they're going to have played and the 17th with the starters. I find it unlikely that they suddenly, you know, reinvent themselves. Again, the only two things to me that really can change it notably is that the offensive line got healthier with the week off and the clear impact Jalen can make as a runner. Those two things certainly could happen, but everything else I think is what it is.
Yeah. That makes sense. Um, but with that said, I think you said, at the beginning here that with all these things said, you do feel at least somewhat confident that we are good enough that we could repeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the phrase I used on my show this morning, well, two things. Two things. One is I'd rather be in the Eagles' position than any team in pro football right now. Now, that's not to say by a lot, but that's to say if I had to put money on one team right now to win the Super Bowl, the team I would pick is the Eagles. I think there's about 10 teams that can win this thing.
Yeah.
I don't think Carolina's going to win the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh's not going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But, I think there's about 10 teams that are relatively even. The Eagles are in that mix. But I would pick the Eagles over the teams with the 1 and 2 seeds for a number of reasons. Um, there's a trust factor that I have with them. Born out of certainly past success from last year, but even to an extent this year. I think the Eagles defense is clearly one of the best units left in pro football this year.
Offense or defensive units.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, the best that you would say at this point are like the Eagles defense, the Rams offense, Um, you know, the Broncos defense, um, Seattle's defense. You know, there's a couple notable groups on either side of the ball, but the Eagles are amongst them. Um, and I think you're just going to have to gut through games that are the 20-16 types, you know, the 24-20s. You know, maybe the 17-14s. I mean, I will be surprised if the Eagles defense falters and the Eagles win a shootout, you know, once or twice in the playoffs. If the Eagles win a game like the way the Eagles won the Super Bowl the first time, 41-33, I'll be
Yeah.
fairly shocked if there's a 41-33 victory in here.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's the formula.
Yeah.
It's not what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like part of your confidence as to why we very well could repeat, and if you had to choose one team, it would probably be the
Yeah.
Eagles. A lot of it sounds like it kind of has to do with just how much parity there is around the league. Like no one
Well,
else. I mean, we're good enough, and we have the experience, but no one else is just that dominant.
I think that's very clear. I do not think there's a truly great team. Look, I thought last year, I thought there were two truly great teams, and I never really saw the Chiefs as one of them.
Was the
Uh,
Lions and the Eagles the two, or
the healthy Lions
yeah,
and the Eagles. And look, I mean, you couldn't discount the Chiefs because you know they might have only lost one regular season game, maybe it was two, but you know, it always kind of felt like the Chiefs were not quite, you know. But look, the Lions when healthy were tremendous. They were
yeah,
tremendous.
yeah,
But they entered the playoffs not healthy and they got smoked quick, you know. And
yeah,
um, I don't think anyone this year is as good as last year's Eagles or last year's Lions. And the other thing I would say, back to your prior question when I said two things. So one is I'd rather be the Eagles than anybody, but let me be clear, not by a huge margin,
yeah, yeah,
but a little bit. And the phrase that I would attach to how I feel about the Eagles, and it goes to this game, and it goes to, you know, hopefully the next month, is cautiously confident.
yeah.
That's what I feel. I feel cautiously confident, and I know those things sound contradictory.
No,
Uh,
yeah, I get it though.
that's what I feel. I mean, does that work for you? Cautiously confident is
Very
how I
much
feel.
so. Yeah, yeah,
That's where I'm at. I mean, look, the caution is born out of the offense, and the confidence is born out of the fact that the team normally wins.
yeah, yeah. Interesting.
And that no one else is truly great.
Yeah, yeah,
But look, but let me be very clear. I mean, you know, there's a 40% or so chance the Eagles lose in the first round. You know, I mean, it's you know, San Francisco's good. They're not exceptional, but they're very good. And I think most of these games I think are very 50-50 ish.
yeah, yeah. I could see that for sure. Um, it doesn't. Again, like you said, you just feel like there's about 10 teams, that could win it. The Eagles are in the mix. You didn't. You haven't mentioned the Seahawks. Like how. I mean, I'm sure of the 14 playoff teams. I'm assuming they're in those. They're in that mix for you. But
Yeah.
where do you see them? Because they're obviously they're the first seed, but they're an interesting kind of weird. I mean, everyone else is weird too because they're
Right.
no one's that good. But where do you see the Seahawks overall?
I mean, look, they had an impressive regular season. They had an incredibly impressive week 18 win to get that one seed. So credit to them. Like they earned it. They really, really, really earned it when you consider that. And I don't know if this has ever happened before, but that division produced the three best records in the conference. I mean, that's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean, now the Eagles would have had 12 wins like some of those other teams that the Eagles had played their starters.
yeah,
But, you know, I don't know if it's ever happened where, um, you know, the Rams, Seattle, and San Fran had the three best records, not in that order in the conference. That's incredible.
yeah,
So I think Seattle is to be taken serious.
yeah,
But I also think the thing with Seattle and a bunch of the other top seeded teams, um, they pretty much all got these quarterbacks that haven't done anything in the playoffs. And some of that's because they're young, and that would be Caleb Williams and that would be Drake May. And some of them, a guy like Sam Darnold is, middle career-ish, and obviously flopped last year in the postseason. It's just this whole thing feels, I think the biggest thing of why this year feels different to me when the playoffs embark in a big picture sense is, in my opinion, because, the quarterbacks that most of America would say are the four best entering the year. Three of them missed the playoffs. Now, some people around here say Jalen's top four. I don't think he is. I had him fifth entering the year, and I thought there was a clear top four in whatever order of Mahomes, Josh Allen, Burrow, and Lamar. And the reality is only one of them made the playoffs. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So you got all these new guys, and that's kind of cool. It's good for the league to get some new juice in there.
Yeah.
But who has won a Super Bowl that's in the playoffs? I'm doing off the top of my head. I guess it would be Hurts, Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And I would think that's probably it. So, you got a lot of new blood, and it'll be fascinating to see who steps up and who wilts. I mean, the reality is Sam Darnold last year, that was a horrible playoff game. Jared Goff last year, now he's not in this year, but that was a horrible playoff game.
Yeah.
Some guys really crumble in these moments. So we'll see.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. I'll go ahead and close it. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, a couple of quick things. So first off, it's my pleasure, Landon. I'm glad that you're wearing your prep. We're both. So what year were you?
I'm 04. I graduated 04.
It's great, man. It's great. So I'm glad that you got that love for the prep and the prep pride. Amazing schools. You and I both know we're very lucky to have attended the prep. And then, of course, I got all love for your father. So please tell your dad I say hi. Just love him. I miss him, obviously, and I haven't seen him in a couple of years, but I got great admiration and real love for your dad.
I really appreciate it, brother. I really appreciate all of that. Seriously.
Of course. So. All right, well, Landon, you stay well. It's been fun doing the podcast, and let's do it again sometime, and stay well, bud.
Yeah, well, it'll be enjoy the playoff season and go Birds, man.
Go prep and go Birds.
Yep, PREP, prep.